Hello and welcome to the IDL. My name's Nick, and this is another episode of The Worst Draft. So in this episode, I want to go over another role-playing game I've been working on called Blue Screen. The idea of Blue Screen is that the prison system now has a television show called Death Gambit. And basically, inmates can try and earn sentence reductions by participating in deadly games that are broadcast all over the world. And so you, being the inmate, you have choices of either just living out your sentence or participating in these deadly games. Whether it be like obstacle courses or hide and seek and stuff like that. Just very, it's like the mini game. It's very mini games focused in a way, where every different major thing you're doing has its own like gimmick and gameplay that you're doing to change up how the game is played. So I just kind of want to go over some of the basic gameplay real quick on this game. The idea is that you'll need 2 to 3 D10s. And this game is played with the D10s. What happens is, if you are, for instance, trying to chase someone who just stole from you, like you're trying to like catch up to them to get back what they stole from you, right? The idea is that you would roll 2d10, and your chase skill has a percentage with it. The percentage, say your percentage is 15%. You roll 2d10, and one of those numbers has to be either a 1 or a 5 to succeed. So you're getting kind of like, I was gonna say like a 1 in 5 chance, and that's not. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's 1 in 5 chance. I think it's a little bit better odds than that because you're rolling 2d20. You have a 1 in 5 chance with 1d10, but I think it'd be an easier chance with 2d10. I just don't know the full math on it. But basically, what'll happen is you get those, and then when you're deciding that you're doing this, you come up with some sort of outcome that you want to happen. Outcomes are dependent on the skill that you use. So, for instance, if you're chasing someone, you can have the move outcome or the overcome outcome, which just means that you either move yourself or you are trying to get past some other obstacle. In this case, you're moving yourself. You're trying to get closer. So you'd say, my objective is to get closer, to move closer to them. So I'm going to use the chase skill to move towards them. And so then you roll trying to match the 1 or the 5 to that 15. And then either you succeed, you can succeed with a boon if you get doubles. So like if you roll 2 1s or 2 5s, you succeed with a boon. If you get the direct number of the 1 and the 5, then you succeed with a boon and you get extra ratings. Which I'll get into ratings. Ratings are basically experience points. So there, I got into them. That was a lot faster than I thought I was going to get to it. Then you have what are your stats, which I call switches in this game. The reason I call them switches is because it spells out the word switch. You have your strength, your wit, invoke, toughness, charm, and humanity. These abilities, or these stats, basically let you roll an extra dice when you are rolling. So if you have a 3 in strength, you might say, okay, I failed my chase check. So what I'd like to do is spend a point of strength to roll an extra dice. And then you get another, 1 in 5 chance of doing this. And that is basically your way of, affecting your rolls a little bit more. Usually if you're getting better, either getting better in your skills, which increase how much rating you get, your experience. Skills are the better skill you have, the more experience you get when you critically succeed. Or you increase your switches, which lets you re-roll more times. I'm at a crossroad right now where I have to make a choice on, do I think that that's enough? That one dice, whether or not that's enough. And I don't know for sure that is enough of an mathematically to help out, right? If it's worth it, especially since you start with such a low amount of stuff that you are running out really fast. Because say like you have, I believe you start with 7 switch points, stat points. So you get 7 skill checks to roll extra on, and that I'm not sure if that's worth it. I do have a mechanic in here called a Devil's Bargain, in which you can re-roll all of the dice you're using. And if you re-roll all the dice you're using, basically if you fail, you critically fail, which will still give you rating. If you succeed, you succeed at a cost. Even if you critically succeed, you'll succeed at a cost. And that's a way to let you re-roll everything and get another chance. And that to me feels like that's a really good way to get extra rolls. But it makes me think that you are going to be rolling with a Devil's Bargain almost every skill check. I tested out a little bit of solo play with this game so far, and I found I was not succeeding a lot. And I think I might need to decide how I'm going about the rolls here. I might do things, maybe I might, instead of a tens place where you need a 1 and a 2, I was thinking maybe a hundreds place. But then that kind of hurts your idea of getting the matching number with 2d10. So I'm not sure yet how I want to reconcile with those problems just yet. Ratings are something you get when you critically succeed or critically fail a skill check. All ratings do is give you that amount of your skill points. So if you have 15 in chase and you critically succeed or critically fail, you'll get 15 ratings. And ratings are basically your experience points that you can spend on building up your characters. And also, I guess there's a lot. So you also get to do, like, okay, I'll go over what you spend it on. Basically, as you're in the prison, you don't have access to most of the prison. You have access to your room and you have the ability to compete. That's about it. But as you get ratings, you can spend ratings as a currency to unlock rooms. You get access to new places like the cafeteria, the gym, things like that. You'll get all these different access points, but you have to spend ratings to do. So for instance, you might spend 200 rating to unlock a tier 1 room. And all tier 1 means is tiers 1 through 3, and that just affects the kind of benefit you get. Whether or not it's a benefit of like say you unlock a gym, right? You're like, okay, I need to work out to be better at chasing people. I need to work on my leg day. You spend 200, you unlock a tier 1 gym. You can decide that what happens with that gym is that you can spend free time in the gym, and that'll let you gain 1 point to your chase skill whenever you do that. So your 15 would go up to a 16 if you spent time in there. A tier 3 would make it go up 3, and that would cost more. Other things you can spend rating on would be reducing your sentence. The whole goal of this game is to reduce your sentence to 0. You want to get out. You have a life on the outside. You have a bond who you will talk to on the phone, or maybe they'll visit once per downtime. And you have someone or something you're looking towards getting out of this place to get to. So the whole conceit of the game is your character is finished either when they die or they get get their sentence removed. And so like that, the big part of this game is just trying to get everyone to get out of the game. You know, they want to be able to get out of the prison. So you might spend 500 rating to reduce your sentence by a year. Other things you can spend it on, you can buy assets like items. So like you might spend 100 rating to get a little trowel, right? You unlocked a botanical garden and you have a trowel. You want to get a trowel. So you spend 100 point ratings, you get a trowel, and you can bring that trowel then into your combat or into your death game. Basically, you'll have that as access. And then yeah, so it's mostly that. It's the way you get better is through unlocking rooms. So like if you want to increase any of your stats, you do it through unlocking rooms. And then you can slowly build up your points by doing that, by interacting with those rooms. So you're not directly getting your character better. You don't like buy skill points directly. It's just through the rooms you have to do it. I have been toying with the idea of being able to spend, and this goes back to my problem with the math. I was toying with the idea that you can spend 100 rating to re-roll a die, and I still don't know if that's enough, or if that kind of steps on the devil's bargain's foot a bit. Because obviously you want to get enough ratings, but you don't want to spend 100 ratings and then get back like 80 rating at the end of the game or at the end of the show, whatever happens. So it's a little bit rough. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it yet. I might still look instead for different ways to re-roll or increase your ability to re-roll or something like that. I just haven't come to that conclusion yet. So character building. The first things you do with character building is you come with an archetype. There are 10 archetypes that I have laid out, anywhere from amnesiac to doctor to scholar to soldier, idols, stuff like that, right? So I have these archetypes, and those will tell you what your base bonuses are to your switches and your skills, and you'll get a talent. So everyone starts with their switches. They'll get 3 in humanity, 2 in 1 skill, and 1 in 2 skills, and then they're basically the way that it works is through the archetypes will tell you where to put those placements. So like for instance, an athlete will get 3 in humanity, 2 in strength, and then 1 in wit and 1 in toughness. That's how you get that base spread. And then you get to put +1 to any of the switches that you'd like. So if you wanted your athlete to get a, your athlete was at a +1 for wit, you might go, okay, I want to spend that to put it at 2. So my athlete is also smarter. So I have a 2 wit. Then you'll gain skills, will go up depending on what it is. So you'll get 22% on 2 skills, 18% on 2 skills, 14% on 2 skills, 9% on 2 skills, 5% on 2 skills. And then that'll cover each of the skills, because there are 10 different skills as well. So that kind of covers that. And then you'll get to spend 15%. You'll have 15% to spread throughout your skills as you wish. So you might go, 22 is a bad number because you have to roll a 2 no matter what. And so you go, okay, I want to bump that up to a 23 to make sure that I am getting a better spread on my stats, on my skills, so it's easier to succeed. When you have a doubles in your skill points, it is harder to succeed, so you want to try and spread that out as best you can. And then like I said, you get a talent. Like for instance, the athlete is get the talent deep training. So what that means is strength gives you an extra die. So when you are trying to, instead of rolling a third die, if you spend your strength switch, a point of your strength to roll an extra die, instead you'll get 2 die. And that'll, whenever you're using strength to re-roll, or to roll extra. And then you want to pick your crime. So basically picking your crime comes with a talent, and it tells you how many years you are in prison for. An example would be the least amount of time you can spend in the prison would be for loitering. You roll 1d10, and that's how many years you are in prison for. And that talent lets you reduce solitary confinement by 1 free time activity. You get solitary confinement if you kill someone, basically. The whole point of the game is people want to see bloodshed, and that's a good way to get ratings, is to kill people. But they will put you in solitary confinement if you do that. So it's like there'll be like a bit of a cost, but like a benefit to doing something like that. Another example would be if you're in prison for theft. That is 10 plus 2d10 years. So a lot of these are very, as you can see, very harsh crimes, or very harsh punishments for crimes. Some of these crimes are bad, but like you'll see, like loitering, you could spend up to 10 years in prison for loitering in this. And so this is very, the setting is very like police state, like where the punishment doesn't match the crime, basically. And it's there to get cheap entertainment for people. It's very, the setting itself, very unfortunate place. Kind of a take on how the world is moving to some degree. So it's not very escapist in that sense, the setting. But so yeah, so for instance, you might do theft. You might get into jail for 10 plus 2d10 years. And that gives you a talent of when you steal something, treat your results as 1 higher. So if you fail to steal something, you succeed at a cost. If you succeed at a cost, you just succeed. If you succeed, you get a success with a boon. You succeed with I think I might do with I think a critical also gives you a boon, so I think I would just bump it up to succeed with ratings or something like that. I don't know yet. Maybe I'll have to look into it and decide a little bit more what exactly that chain of successes are. Yeah, because I already have it gives you a boon and ratings. Ooh, getting a pair is harder than just getting 2 numbers, I think. So maybe, yeah, I don't know. I'll look into that. I think just kind of going through it with how I'm doing it, I might make getting a pair its own special thing and just go failure, success at a cost, success, and critical success. And I guess critical failure above all that. Yeah, so you'll get to know right away how long you have to work off your stuff. Now, what makes this setting special, you might ask, other than it's a interesting setting. So obviously I love anime, so I make my games as anime-rific as I possibly can, and I love that kind of shit. So to make it a little bit more anime, basically there is a drug that you can sign up for. It's not meant to be like an approved thing. It's very experimental, and the idea is that they inject you with devil's blood. And the devil's blood, when you contract devil's blood, it's like you gain a power from it. Basically, if you agree to inject devil's blood, you'll get your sentence reduced by 2d10 years, which at a lower rate might help you succeed just getting out in general. But at a higher rate, it's a really good boon, and it gives you power. So basically, you'll have devil's blood gives you 10 points to spend on how to make it. So the first thing you do is you choose the name of your power, which can be between 1 to 10 words long. Each word costing a point. So if your power's name is paint the roses red, that is 4 word. So that's 4 points. And for each word, that's how many times you can invoke your power. So for instance, I can paint the roses red. I can use 4 times for free. If I want to use it any more, it'll cost either invoke or humanity points. Then what you do is you choose skills based on that name, each costing a point. So a skill, paint the roses red, I might include fight. So that's a 5th point. Fight and shoot. Fight and shoot I might include. So that's 6 points right there. Then you choose an extra outcome for those skills, each costing a point. You can do that. So I have 5 points left. So I might, give fight and shoot their remaining outcomes. Will put me at 9, and then I might choose avoid as another skill. So that puts me at 10 points, right? So I paint the roses red is 4 points. Fight, shoot, and avoid, choosing those skills, is 3 extra points. And then adding the remaining outcomes to fight and shoot that they don't already have, that should cost, or adding 2 more should bring me up to 10. So basically, when you have your power, you can do extra things with it when you're using your skills. It basically gives you permission to do things that you normally couldn't do. So if I had the power chain lightning, if my power was called chain lightning, that would give me permission to do things I normally wouldn't be able to do. So for instance, I would use it on fight if I could, and then fight, I would be able to do something like, for instance, chain lightning, I would be able to attack more people than just one at a time, right? So it's adds a truth to the fiction, basically. It gives you permissions in that sense. So as long as it makes sense in fiction, you can do it. I am thinking, sorry, I had a huge pause in there because my brain started working. I was thinking maybe I would add a 3rd die whenever you use your power. So that it kind of encourages you to get powers and to use powers. And that'd be something you're good at. I'm trying to decide if there's a downside to using this stuff, though. I guess you can only use it so many times. So yeah, I'm thinking I want to add the 3rd die, which if you add points, you could add a 4th die to it, right? So you just get a 3rd die to this, or an extra die. I should start saying extra die, not 3rd die. You get an extra die to your roll, and if you take a devil's bargain, I'm thinking maybe that hurts you. So not just critical failure, but I think that hurts you. The other stats I didn't really talk about basically is your health, which is just 10 plus humanity plus toughness. You could go down pretty easily. Your damage is your strength, your invoke, charm, or wit. Depends on what you're doing to attack, what you're using to damage with. So if I'm using brawl to damage, that would be strength. If I'm using persuade to damage someone, like trying to, so I combine both physical and mental damage into one thing just called resolve, and it's just your ability to continue going. You'll see that as a common thread in a lot of the games I've been making, as I really like the term resolve over health, because I think it helps accommodate both physical and mental damage pretty well. It's more about your will to go on rather than because it's fun. Okay, you've taken a lot of physical damage, but yet here you are, you're still standing. I think that's a really fun moment. But I also like the idea that someone can talk you out of something by reducing your resolve. Your resolve going to 0, I don't think necessarily means that you're dead. I do like the idea that it depends on whoever puts you to 0. They can decide what happens to you. I think that's the more appropriate choice for finality. So if someone doesn't want to kill you, they don't have to kill you just by putting you to 0. To heal, you'll get to sleep. Whenever you sleep, you heal 1 resolve and 1 switch. The only switch you can't heal that way is humanity. Humanity you have to spend by interacting with your bond during free time. So the structure of this game is you'll have free time, then you'll go into an investigative period, where you get to learn about the next game you're going to participate in. Then you do that game, which I call show. I just call a show. So you go for one show, and then you afterwards get free time again. So it's kind of that, just a simple loop of like free time and show, and you can restore your sleeping for a day will restore. So you could go multiple days without being in a show if you wanted to. And you would determine that based off free time rules. I haven't put down like a timeline of like how many free times per day you get or anything like that yet. But I'm thinking maybe like you get 2 or 3 per day, something along those lines, which might help speed up, I think, people getting better. Or the problem is it might make people get like really good with their skills and then wait, and by the time they're fully healed, they might, have boosted a shit ton. So that might not be great. I might just limit it to 1 downtime per day or something like that. Some people, when they're at full health, I think they'll be more encouraged to go back into a show. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'll have to play test it a bit more. Weapons. So I mentioned earlier being able to bring items, things like trowels, stuff like that. Basically, what they do can either let you can spend an item to either re-roll a skill, or you can, for instance, if it's a weapon, if you're using it as a weapon, you can do a little extra damage depending on the tier of the item. 1 through 3. I think 1 to 3 is a good limit, so bonuses aren't like super high, because having higher numbers don't typically help you more. The only way at times that it matters is your damage versus resolve generally. But the most important part, this is all player focused, all player forward, player facing. That's the term I'm looking for. Player facing. So players make all the rolls. So you get to narrate like, okay, wow, security machine guns pop up and they start shooting at you. Then that means your players will decide, okay, well, I am going to avoid the damage. I'm going to try and dodge the gunfire. So then they get to choose to roll a avoid check to see if there's success. If they fail, basically when they fail, you get an outcome as a GM. So you might say, okay, you failed, so my outcome is that you take damage. Or my outcome is that you you succeed in dodging the bullets, but you are actually pushed further away from the door that you're trying to make to. So you got pushed back a bit with the suppressive fire and stuff like that. So it's all player facing. Players get to decide what they're going to do, and then the world kind of reacts to them that way. That way you can kind of focus on just the narrative focus of everything, and the players can focus on their skills and stats better. And it makes them feel a little bit more involved, I think. I haven't gotten to do a lot of player-facing games, but I've been very curious about player-facing games a lot, just because it's easier on GMing, which I primarily GM. And so I like the idea, I just don't get a lot of experience, and that's why I'm writing one that has player-facing roles in it. But I think that's just about it on Blue Screen. It's called Blue Screen because I'm thinking of like the blue glow of a TV into the digital age when like there's nothing hooked up, whatever. You get instead of static, you get a blue screen. It also is kind of like a computer blue screen where, that means something's terminal, something's bad happened in the setting, or the hardware's broken, or something's gone wrong dramatically. And so it's very like end of life for your machinery in that system. And the system in this game, not the game system, but the system in the setting is, is very broken. And it ends often in the terminality of the inmates' lives. So I mentioned earlier I was doing some solo sessions. So I'm trying my hardest to get some playtesting done on Realm Breaker right now. I am doing it through a solo session where I am narrating. I'm writing out what's happening to help me kind of focus my attention. I find it hard to play test games by myself, but I'm finding that when I write it out, like I type it into a document as it's happening, I have a little bit easier time separating myself as a GM and a player to like what's going on, and it's easier to do those solo sessions of play testing. So I've been play testing. I did a little bit of blue screen to see how I felt about that, and that's where I decided that that I felt like I wasn't succeeding enough, which is helpful. That's why I want playtesting, is to be able to find those things out. But I also have been doing a little bit of Realm Breaker with the same thing. It's a little bit trickier with Realm Breaker, but it's working out. I haven't gotten into combat yet with it, so I don't know how goofy the mechanics are for that, but I'm working on that shortly. And I'll, put in updates on what I think is going well or bad with this. I haven't committed to doing a solo session of Lion's Draft yet, because that one is a little bit more complex of a game, and I need to do a lot more prep work, I think, to navigate it all, because there's a lot of movies. It's very much a, it takes a player to run their character, right? To run all of the enemies and all of the PCs, it's much more taxing on me than it is to run a solo adventure with other games, because that one is more tactical. You want more people and more pieces on the board. With Realm Breaker or Blue Screen, it's easier to focus on the narrative of one character. So it's been easier to do those solo sessions. I am planning on trying to get some people I know to playtest character creation to see if something's confusing or if they pick up on something that I missed. But I haven't quite gotten people to do it just yet, just because it is like pulling teeth, I think, to get people to interact with certain things. It's not because people are just shit. I don't want to make it sound like I think people are just lazy or shitty. It's just that everyone has things to do. Like, we all have obligations outside of role-playing games. We all have games that we're already playing. So it's just hard to find time to get people to do this stuff rather than willingness, right? That's about it. So I don't want to make it colored like, I don't want to color it like I just have the worst friends. No. It's just time is hard. So yeah. Other news, I am working on a board game. What I realized was that Asmodee put out applications at the time a little bit ago, not a little bit, maybe like a month ago. They put out job postings for board game and card game stuff, and I was like, well, I don't have a career in that, and I was like, how do you like show that you can do this work without actually doing the work, or without having actually done the work? And the answer to that, I realized, was to do the work. That was to make a board game that, even if I am, I work on a lot of different small projects here and there, but I'm like, I want something that I can point to and be like, see, I'm able to do this. I put in the work for it. So even though by the time I do this board game, I'm sure that job posting will be long gone. It seems like a really valuable job opportunity, and so I imagine they've got plenty of people who are already going for it. I realized I need to be prepared for something like that to happen again, so I'm working on a board game. That board game is kind of a board game version of war miniature, like war games, like miniature battles and stuff like that. So my idea is that you have a board, and I'm thinking like a 10 by 10 board, and there's each map it'll be different maps that you can play on, and they'll each have different resources, and then you have units that you put on the board that you move on the board, like you would in like Warhammer or other games like that. And it'll basically be, you'll get cards. It'll be kind of like a deck builder board game, and then you'll be able to use those cards to choose to move or attack or do special things. So I've been working on it. I'm not fully mechanically set just yet, so I don't want to get too into the weeds on that. But I guess what I'm thinking right now is that each faction has 10 cards that you start with, and then you basically get the opportunity every turn to draw from or maybe you get the opportunity through your units to draw from a general deck. And when you draw from the general deck, you get to choose or you get to add that to your hand, and then eventually that'll just loop into your deck as you're playing. And then you'll just do a deck builder from there, and then you'll use your stuff to achieve. The idea is that there'll be objective cards in there. So like you'll get points for objectives, and so basically you want to get these objective cards, and when you get these objective cards, you get to then keep putting them in your deck. And when you have them in your deck, you have the opportunity to get the points. So if you have an objective card, and you say your objective card might be like control the forest in section E3, right? So you'll be like, okay, well, I've got my dudes in here. I'm staying put in E3 so I can get this objective point when it comes up every time. And then you keep building objective points. So then you'll have the ability to just keep accruing points as you go, rather than, and then I would say rather than fighting over objective points like you would in a normal skirmish game or war game, you would just be kind of getting those points by default. And then, of course, you can always, I want the ways to be able to screw over your opponents, obviously, to be more interactive than so you're not just playing by yourself. So, like, I want to be able ways to destroy units who are on there, and then maybe units have special abilities that you can use when you get certain points, things like that. But I'm not fully there yet. Talking it out loud through here is giving me some ideas, but I'm not fully set just yet on what it is I'm doing with it. But I'm getting there. I think I'm getting there. And then hopefully if I have this board game, trust me, this is, I think, going to be 1,000 times easier than doing card games. Because card games, I find you have to play test. And the hardest part about playtesting is proxies and making proxies. And if you have any kind of changes that you have to do, it makes it so hard. And I think that's what's put me off so hard on finishing up the Realmbreaker card game or anything like that, because it's just the weight of doing proxies sucks, especially if I'm just playing by myself. It's a tax. It's taxing to me, and I don't want to do it. But I think if I'm doing it with this board game, it's more of a closed system, and I'll be able to reuse a lot of the same cards anyway. So the only unique stuff I'm making is I don't have to make like a million copies for each deck that I'm playing. I just need the unique copies for the different factions, and then the general cards. Then I have to make up the general cards, and that'll be the challenge, is deciding what kind of what you're deck building and what that means and what that can give you, right? So yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Other news, I have been working on a Pathfinder 2nd Edition adventure set in Fractera, the setting for Gluttony and Earth. It takes place like several hundred years. I think it's like 200 years after the series ends. So I'm not finished with it, but I'm trying to make sure it's as unaffected by Gluttony and Earth as possible. There are certain things with Gluttony and Earth that I don't know what's going to happen, obviously, because the series isn't done yet at the time of recording. So I don't know how it's going to affect the world in general, but I'm making sure that it's less dependent on that result. But I'm about 2/3 of the way done with this adventure. I've been writing. I've gotten it's a 3-part adventure that I'm doing, and I've gotten parts 1 and 2, and it's based off the squads and missions system too that I put out there, because I've converted that to Pathfinder as well. Oh, that's right. I was going to go over all that stuff. Maybe next episode we should go over all of that stuff that I've got going on, and maybe we'll talk more about in depth on this adventure. Maybe not, because I don't want to spoil things, but I might go a little bit more briefly on it. But I'm working on different things right now that are all kind of slowly coming to pieces, because my brain needs to have different projects to work on at different times or at the same time, so that way if I get stuck, I can move on to the next thing. I am working on a non-game related project right now, a audio fiction series, so that is also taking up a lot of my time, because I want to get that right. So hopefully I'll have more info on the adventure and next time, just to give you a little bit more details on like, ooh, what's this going to be about, which I think would be more interesting. And yeah, next time I gotta remember to go over all my squads and mission building setting. So I talked about it in the 5e episode, but I didn't go over it really in depth at all. So yeah, okay. I think that's about it. That's where we can leave off with this episode. Thanks everyone for joining in and listening. If you want to, you're listening to this through the feed, thanks, great. Try and give us some reviews maybe, or rate us or whatever, depending on whatever app you're using. It would help a lot. If you are listening to this on YouTube, consider checking out the podcast feed. Otherwise, you could like and subscribe to this channel. If you guys want to hear more from me, you can always check out my Blue Sky account. That's at Bumblescum, where I post about things, I guess. Games, streaming, just nonsense. Yeah, let's see. That's about does it. I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you. Bye.